welcome to the A Bit of AI show with your hosts, Henk and Amy.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the 9th A Bit of AI show. My name is Henk Boelman, and I'm a white male with brown hair, wearing glasses and a black shirt.
And hi everyone, my name's Amy Boyd. I am female with blonde hair and I'm wearing a black short sleeve dress. And Henk, you mentioned it's another exciting episode and we have someone quite special on this one.
Exactly, looking so much forward to talk to him again. It's been a while. But once again everyone, welcome to the A Bit of AI show, and this show is all about the story behind the people that make the AI working. In our job, we meet so many people around the globe and we realize that there are so many different skill sets needed when people create AI solutions. From people actually doing the pre-sales, to the consultancy, to actually creating the deep neural networks itself and running it in production. And in this show, we invite people from all over the world that are professionals in the AI space to just have a casual chat and talk what they actually do during the week. So this is the 9th episode, and you already told it, Amy. We have someone very special today, and I couldn't be more excited to learn about his life. So in this show today, we have two items. We first start with our guest Ari Bornstein to chat about his life in AI, and finally we dive into a Learn Challenge of the week. And as always, all the links and everything and the recordings are provided on our website, abitofai.show.
Nice. And yeah, before we speak to Ari, and actually me and Henk get to catch up with him after we've had a little break when he's gone on to amazing things. We actually want to remind you that after this show, we do have a bit of AI cafe. Now, what is that? It's a friendly meeting where after the show, you can come and chat with me and Henk, but I'm pretty sure you'll want to chat with our guests more and actually just ask questions, share resources, and have a chat in a sort of offline space, a bit like what we used to do when we were at community events in person.
So perfect, let's get started. Hi Ari, how are you doing today?
Hey, welcome, and it's thank you guys for having me here. I'm doing great. It's sunny outside and just beautiful day.
Well, Joel, thank you so much for joining us, even if it is nice and sunny where you are. Let's get straight into it because we have so much to talk about. Like I said, we're technically on catch up here because you've moved on to amazing things, but we all used to work together in the advocacy team here at Microsoft. So it's an absolute treat to have you back. So first things first, Ari, for everyone else who doesn't already know you, can you tell us who you are and what you do in the space of AI?
Absolutely. So first of all, as you guys can see, name's Ari Bornstein. I'm based here in Tel Aviv in Israel. Originally, I grew up in Washington, D.C. area. In the space of AI, I run the developer advocacy department for open source framework called PyTorch Lightning, as well as a cloud solution for streamlining training of AI models called Grid.ai.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, there's couple of pieces we're going to want to unpick there. First one is Tell us more about Grid.ai.
Absolutely. So Grid is a company that does two things. First is we support a open source package running on top of PyTorch that allows you to organize your code, reduce your boilerplate, and take advantage of the best practices of deep learning without all the overhead of you having to implement everything yourself, while at the same time providing you the flexibility to override what you need as a researcher. So that's one side of things. On the other side of things, we have a cloud-based offering where our goal is to make ML ops invisible. And today there's a lot of overhead, a lot of work that you need to do in order to get models training that's not related to actual deep learning, AI research, and building out applications. And our goal is to build a platform that makes that invisible, one step at a time.
Nice one. I was going to say that is the part, if I'm honest, that I am not as good at. Like, I can do the basics, right? I understand the basics of ML ops, but I would never necessarily want to be completely trusted right now to be putting it personally into production from the ML ops side. Like, I'd want to go and speak to someone who is a little bit more experienced. And yeah, I really think this kind of thing is what we're seeing a lot on a bit of AI, which is everyone has their specific segment of AI, but there are so many different things happening in this space. Speaking of which, all jobs in the AI industry daily are different. So this is quite a difficult question, but I reckon you've got it. Could you describe what an average day in your role looks like? What do you get up to as head of cloud advocacy?
Sure. So the first answer, it's going to be a little disappointing, but there is no real average day. But I can break down kind of like an average week, maybe, or an average month, or what are the types of things that I do. So I like to break my role into three core components: content, community, and engineering. First and foremost, let's touch on community. And one of the big things that I do is we have a vibrant community using PyTorch Lightning, developing AI applications. Recently, we crossed over 2 million downloads. And a big part of what I try to do is understand what are the needs of the community, where are people struggling, how can we better support our community, what are people developing, how can I make it easier for people to develop on top of Lightning and just build better AI applications. So that's one aspect, and that also involves going into events like this and working with you guys and showing, kind of being able to spread the word. That's one aspect. The other aspect is content. And so based on the feedbacks and the different things that I hear from the community and my own work in the research labs, I try to develop content that unblocks people, whether that's through Medium posts or GitHub content, YouTube videos, Kaggle kernels, and all the like, and trying to enable people to, our goal in advocacy is AI and deep learning can be hard, and we want to go through the pain so that the end developer, when they get started, they don't have to go through that same pain. So that's one, the second pillar. And the last pillar is the engineering. And that's after we get these feedback and as we're developing the content, being able to work with our engineering teams to make sure that our backlog is something that supports the community and makes it easier to develop AI applications for everyone. So those are the three pillars of what I do, and that can mean millions of different things, from being at meetups to writing posts to writing code to going to conferences. We had ICLR this week, for example. It can mean being on product meetings till very late in the night. But everything we do for the community. So it's very exciting to have those opportunities.
That's really, really cool. And ICLR, could you just break out what that's a conference for those who maybe haven't heard of it before?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a couple key general machine learning conferences. So one is NeurIPS, the other one is ICML, and the last one is ICLR, which stands for the International Conference on Learning Representations. So there's these three key conferences a year. In addition to that, there are usually some additional domain AI conferences, things like CVPR for computer vision, or ACL and EMNLP for natural language processing. And there are all sorts of different conferences as well. Those key conferences are really great opportunities to learn about cutting edge research, what people are doing, and also be able to put, faces to names. Typically they're in person. This year, everything's been digital. So a big part of my role is being able to try to think creatively on how we can do advocacy in a digital era.
Oh no, we hear you. And it wouldn't be technology if every event didn't have an acronym. So maybe we could break them down in the cafe for people. If they come join us, we can send links. Also, if you did some strategic internet search in there in the background to remember what it stands for, that's normally what I'm doing as well when someone asks. But one of the things we definitely wanted to dig into was some of the projects you're working on at the moment. So what's a highlight for you at the moment?
So there are a lot of really interesting things going on. One of them is we put out today, actually, we're putting out a brand new release of PyTorch Lightning, so 1.3. So there's been a lot of really cool new features being added in there. We added a new CLI. So instead of it taking something like 50 lines of code to add arg parser to every script so that you can get all your configuration, you can now do that in like 10 lines of code, even less. We provided like some really cool integrations, work that we've done with Microsoft on DeepSpeed, which enables you to scale on the same hardware where you could only train, a couple million parameters for your models, scale them out to billion parameter scale affordably and in a way that's a lot more economic, which is also important to me in terms of how we can reduce environmental imprint. There's a lot of really cool work as well that I've been doing on a project called Lightning Flash, which is one of the challenges a lot of people have in the AI space is, how do I even get started? How do I get started running a model? And then usually, we get started with those challenges. We find some code online. We run through 6 things, can't get it running. On the 7th, we finally get one that's running. Then we have no idea what's going on with it or how to make it better. And so what Flash is it's a framework that enables quick baselining, being able to take a whole bunch of different tasks, whether those are the traditional tasks like image classification, object detection, tabular data classification, and text classification, but also that they're constantly adding more advanced tasks all the time, like graph classification, instance segmentation. We worked with Facebook to provide support in the upcoming release on video classification. And so you have these baselines that you can get started with. They integrate, you have this really nice backbone API. So if you're a framework maintainer, you can add your own models into the tasks to extend them. And you can also even integrate any model hub you want into Flash. But what's really powerful about Flash is not only does it allow you to just get started, evaluate a model, fine-tune the model, and do this very simply, but because everything's on Lightning, built in Lightning, it's organized so you can override what you need. So if I need to change a loss function because I want to experiment with a new form of loss function, or want to combine 2 tasks, or I want to do more complex scenarios, Lightning, because it's built on Lightning, you're able to override and really get that flexibility. So I'm really excited about the work that's going on with Flash. I'd say one other project that I know, there's so many projects, which is part of why this work is so exciting, is in the Lightning ecosystem, we're constantly asked about best practices for how to train models from frameworks such as Hugging Face and Transformers. So recently we released a package called Lightning Transformers that enables you to take advantage of all the best practices of the PyTorch Lightning ecosystem to more efficiently and effectively train Hugging Face Transformer models. So I'm really excited about that. And a lot of those innovations actually transcend just Hugging Face Transformer models. You can add your own research transformer models there as well.
That's so cool. So we've got like PyTorch, then we have PyTorch Lightning, and then we have Lightning Flash as a feature of that.
Yes, Lightning Flash, bolts, and transformers. So it's a full ecosystem around Lightning.
Wonderful. And so Henk, do you wanna take it away with how Ari got into AI?
Absolutely,
yeah.
We heard a lot about the tech now and what you do now, but I'm really interested in how you came to this point in your career.
So it's really funny that you mentioned that, because yesterday at the ICLR conference, which again, stands for the International Conference on Learning Representations. Now, again, sometimes all the acronyms, I get lost with all the acronyms as well. But we had a really nice social on traditional paths to AI and machine learning. I'll mention mine in just a second, but I think one of the things that I'm really excited about this role is that so many of the people working in the role have come from untraditional paths. For example, Will Falcon, who's our CEO, he didn't write a line of code until like 6 years ago. Prior to that, he didn't know how to code. He started out with Navy SEALs, came out of that, went to college, learned about this coding stuff when mobile applications started coming out, and got really deep into that, heard about AI, and just iterated really fast. And that's inspiration. My story is a little different, but as well, I come from a liberal arts background. So I wanted to study computer science, but I also really passionate about liberal arts and humanities, and double majored in history and computer science. When I was in my senior year, I had an opportunity to work with the National Institutes of Health on a project for classifying and categorizing medical literature. And at the time, I didn't know anything about machine learning or AI. It was a really interesting time in the field as well, because scikit-learn was just starting to get traction. So up until that time, when people talked about machine learning or natural language processing, these were, you really need to know like low-level C, or things were implemented in MATLAB and libsvm, for example, and like it was very inaccessible to a wider audience. And I came in just at a time where these things started becoming accessible, and I was given this task of trying to classify this medical literature. Knew nothing about AI, but as I started thinking about the task and searching online, I learned about these frameworks and got started that way. Just fell in love with it. And then after that, when I finished university, I started at Microsoft. And there I actually wasn't focused on AI in the beginning. I was focused on mobile development. But as I would go and meet with customers and meet with partners, I would hear constantly again and again, people coming up with scenarios where they also didn't, necessarily know that these types of things could help them, and being able to, be able to bridge that gap. In one of the cool demos I worked on for mobile was how to use Azure Machine Learning, for example, in the beginning to integrate in the early iterations with Windows Phone and mobile and cross-platform apps. And then from there, I was lucky enough when I moved to Israel to be on an open source engineering team where there was a lot of amazing AI startups that I got to work with. I got to develop out some really amazing AI applications, and also had the opportunity in the past 2 years to double down and study a research degree while working at Microsoft in the field of natural language processing here in Israel. So starting from liberal arts, going a little bit more traditional with the master's, but really it's been an amazing journey. And if for people who are just getting started with AI and machine learning, and strongly recommend the path. I think there's so many exciting projects here, and so much that's just moving at such a fast pace. It's an exciting place to be at the right time.
Awesome.
That's so amazing. What a journey! What a journey from one thing to another. It sounds like a lot of experiences kind of built up that different knowledge, and you kind of started to specialize almost, or spotting gaps in what people are looking for. So yeah, I think that will really resonate with our audience. But Henk, it's time. It's time for the most important question that we ask in every series.
Yeah. What is the most annoying
what's the most
thing?
important?
The most annoying thing about your role in AI
today. So I would say, I think the most annoying thing about developing applications and working in AI today, and part of the reason that I actually was really excited to have this opportunity to work with PyTorch Lightning and the Grid team, is this concept of boilerplate. So for those who don't know, boilerplate code is code that is often re-implemented again and again, many different ways, often very complex code, but that has very little functional variation. So boilerplate causes all sorts of problems in AI. It causes problems with reproducibility because somebody might write one set, implement one set of routines in one way that they don't save the hyperparameters or the splits or the random seeds, so you can't reproduce the code because there's no standardization. You might have other issues where like you have code readability issues because code's not organized, it's all over the place. You have areas where it's very hard to debug because there's no standardization of code. So one of the exciting things about, and where I kind of fell in love with being able to work with PyTorch Lightning is this mission of trying to figure out how we can abstract out the boilerplate while still providing researchers with the flexibility to override what they need. And if people are, just learning about this concept, like I do have some really nice lectures that I have online on YouTube, so we can share links in the end if they'd love to learn more about what is boilerplate. My guess is even if you haven't heard of boilerplate, you felt the pain of boilerplate. So I'm happy to show you kind of how to reduce it and make life easier. Because once that pain is gone, life just gets so much easier in AI.
Oh, that's amazing. And yeah, I love that. Like, you've probably felt it even if you didn't know it had a name called boilerplate. So that's always good. So Ari, we warned you about this next segment. This is our quickfire questions round. So we are going to try and get through some of these quite rapidly. So we have 6 questions for you. I think you're going to find them incredibly easy, but it tells us a lot about yourself and how you got into AI, what you're doing right now, and what you're looking forward to in the future. So let's kick it off straight away with a really nice, easy one. So Ari, what was your first programming language?
Ooh, wow, that's a good question. My first programming language was Logo. It was like this educational programming language with little turtles to try to teach people how to code. Once upon a time, like it puts you in a weird place in like mid 2000s, because if you're prior to that, like people were like, what the heck is Logo? If you're after that these days, nobody would start with Logo anymore. It's like using languages, and again, maybe people do, but like that I've also had to code in the past, like Delphi and the rest. But if I was to get started again, the first language that I really fell in love with was Python, and that changed computer science for me. Prior to that, having to work with C++ and Java and just getting stuck all the time waiting for stuff to compile or getting weird compilation errors. When I first learned Python, and instead of having to do all this complex syntax, I was able to just write print in a string and it ran. That just changed everything for
me. Someone is asking if there is a Logo.net SDK.
There might be. I don't remember. Knowing Microsoft, it's very, very possible. I think, the second language that I learned was like Visual Basic. So for that, I know there was a .NET SDK.
Perfect. So the next question, I think we all know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What programming language was used in the last project you worked on?
Java. No, I'm just kidding. Absolutely Python. Again, don't get me wrong. I think it's good to have a wide range of understanding of different programming languages. For me, I've done a lot of front end work, and I love JavaScript, .NET as well. Back in the day, I was writing Windows Phone apps, so I had to do a lot in .NET, and also built out some of the first applications for universal Windows apps for Windows 10. Java as well has its moments for scalability, C and the like, C++. But for me, like, my heart will always be with Python. And I hope it, I would say, like, one of my things is, as it's matured, it's become much more a production language, which for me, like in my hobbyist roots, it's sometimes a little painful because I remember just like the elegance of being able to do print and have a string and not have to put parentheses, or now all this Python code has typing. And again, 100% understand why, and it really makes more robust, cleaner to read, easier to use code. But it's really interesting how the ecosystem has evolved.
Wonderful. Okay, for these next 4 questions, we're going to go through them fairly quickly. So for this next one, in no more than 1 sentence, what was the last thing you learned in AI?
Oh, wow. Last thing I learned in AI. Really good question. Let's come back to it. I'm sorry. We're gonna go real fast, but
no,
I need to think about
that's
that.
Good.
Good.
Hank, over to you.
Favorite event in the AI calendar.
Ooh, EMNLP. That's my favorite as a natural language processing person. Okay, yeah, that was 2 sentences. Sorry.
Okay. I know. Keep it to 1. Keep it to 1. What area of AI is on your list next to skill up on?
Absolutely. Well, I've always been interested in reinforcement learning, so I'd love to learn a little bit more about that. Self-supervised learning. There's a lot of really cool stuff going there, so that as well. Yeah.
That's interesting.
And then,
We've had that. That's a good one.
And then final question. What training framework did you use last?
That is PyTorch Lightning.
I would hope so, that was the answer.
It's interesting. It's interesting you asked that, because you almost caught me, because this morning, one of the nice things about Grid is we support multiple frameworks. So a lot of the work I do is around PyTorch Lightning, but I was actually even using LNNLP and validating some stuff this morning. So if you had asked me 2 hours ago, that answer would have changed. But luckily, it's the right answer. It's PyTorch Lightning.
That's wonderful. It shows your versatility as well, and the ability to pick up different frameworks, and how important that is for the situation that you're in, where it's kind of offering that service element as well. But unfortunately, that's all we've got time for, Ari. Thank you so much for diving into questions about yourself, about your journey, about what you're working on, and also the amazing technology that you're working really closely with. We will share lots of links. This has been a great signposting piece for people to go and learn more. So we'll definitely be sharing some stuff on our website.
Thank you for having me. Absolutely. And I sent a resource sheet. So if we share the links to the resource sheet, all the projects, all the things I spoke about, they're all accessible there. And always you see @Pythic Coder, you can reach out to me on Twitter, and I'm happy to support or help out any way I can.
Wonderful.
Perfect.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ari, and we'll see you in the cafe.
Perfect. See you there.
Cool. We have 30 seconds to wrap it up, Amy.
I know, this is going to be a fast one. Should we go straight for the learning modules?
Yes. Let's do
Wonderful. So, so Ari talked a little bit about kind of a lot of these frameworks. So what I've done is give you a more theory-based learn challenge this week, which is create machine learning models that is evaluating data, training different types of models. If you go to aka.ms, a bit of AI-learn, you can find out more. And thank you so much for joining us today. We really hope you've enjoyed the show. We're here every Thursday, 10 a.m. CET, and in varying different parts of Europe and Asia. If you want to come and join us in the cafe, go to aka.ms/abitofai-cafe. Or if you want to rewatch this episode, go to abitofai.show. But that is all from us. Thank you so much for watching A Bit of AI Show with Henk and Amy.